Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Weekend Wrap Up. I'm David Thomas, and in front of me is Mr. Drew Hooker, sitting in Josh Blevins' seat. How's it feel to sit in Josh's seat?
Well, I'm just trying to not mess it up, and it's big shoes to fill, so we'll see how it goes. So
yeah, we had a few things happening this week. We had our committee meetings for the commission. We had a school board meeting, which was a hot topic. We're going to touch on that. Also, we got Cheval now got its scanner updated for the tracking system, and that thing has been popping. And we're going to talk about some of the calls, some of the humorous calls I've heard, but more emphasis we're going to put on our agencies doing a professional job. We're going to talk about that as well. Before we dive into these things, let's hear from our sponsors. We'll be back in just a few minutes, but we want to thank these sponsors. We want to thank Cutting Edge Optical out on North Main Street, the Dream Team, the Arnolds from Coldwell Banker, and also Dennis Young Insurance. We'll be right back.
For clear vision and trusted care, choose Cutting Edge Optical. We offer comprehensive eye exams powered by 20/20 exams, expert contact lens fittings, and a wide selection of quality frames to match your style and budget. Need glasses fast? We even offer same-day eyeglasses to keep you seeing clearly without the wait. Our experienced team is committed to personalized service and helping you see your best every day. Visit Cutting Edge Optical at 1114 North Main Street in Shelbyville or call 931-488-5778 to schedule your appointment today.
Get the results you want with the personalized service you deserve at Dennis Young Insurance Agency.
As a local independent agency, we offer coverage from several different companies, including Erie. So whether it's auto, home, life, personal, or business, we can find the right coverage to meet your unique insurance needs. And with a rate lock advantage, your rates won't go up as long as you do not change drivers, autos, or addresses. Contact us at Dennis Young Insurance Agency, insuring Shelbyville and surrounding areas since 1988.
When you're ready to buy or sell in Middle Tennessee, you want someone who knows this community inside and out. Meet Diane and Madison Arnold, Shelbyville's trusted real estate team with decades of local experience and award-winning results. Whether it's finding your dream home, pricing your property to sell, or navigating every step of the transaction with confidence, they're with you from start to finish. As part of Coldwell Banker Southern Realty, they pair hometown expertise with powerful market tools to help you move with confidence. Call Diane and Madison today and experience the personal service and local knowledge that makes all the difference.
All righty, welcome back to the Weekend Wrap Up. Drew, let's just dive right into county government. This week we had our final committee meetings for the outgoing commission. Mm-hmm. You had rules, you had courthouse and properties, then you had law enforcement.
Public safety.
Yeah. So you were at these meetings. One of the things that I saw was the rules committee was basically trying to give an outlay for the next set of committees that's coming up. Kind of tell us what happened. Tell us what the process looks like there.
Yeah. So when we came into office 4 years ago, we kind of messed it up and missed a month. And so if you notice, last year we went a whole month with little attendance and really kind of slowed business down. And that was because we didn't. And so we're trying to get ahead of it this year, make sure that we did it the right process. And so just to kind of talk a little bit about rules and how that works is our bylaws say that the rules committee chairman, which is Biff Fair, he gets the decision of reaching out to all these new commissioners and getting their preferences, reaching out to the current commissioners and seeing if anybody wants to move.
Right.
And so he did that. I think he said he talked to 15 out of the 18 commissioners. And 15 got either their first or relatively, they were indifferent between two committees. And so he said he seated 15, and then 3 he didn't hear from. And so he put those in the open slots. And there was a little bit of controversy, as there always is sometimes in our meetings. And so there was 2 interpretations of the rule. One going from outgoing Commissioner Greg Vick and one from returning Commissioner Diane Neely. I tend to side with Diane on this situation because to me it's pretty spelled out that the recommendations come in from the incoming commissioners. the rules committee chair puts them in a recommendation, and it goes to the commission for confirmation.
Okay, now I think the question that came up, or at least a conversation I heard was, do we do these as groups or do we do these as individuals, or how does that happen?
Our bylaws do not say either or.
Okay.
It just says that the rules committee chairman will make a recommendation to the commission. The thing is we always, for some reason, have to turn every little piece into a controversy. But I believe Commissioner Fair tried to do this the most fair way possible. I think, there was one commissioner where he said, "Hey, I really want you to stay in that spot." And that was Keith Davis, because 4 of the 5 members of the courthouse and property
Rolling
committee,
off.
which I was
Yeah.
Chairman of, were all rolling off. And so with that, he asked Keith to stay there because that's some continuity on
Right.
that one. And that's just, to me, good leadership of, someone looking forward and seeing that there is a potential problem if we put 5 new commissioners on a committee. I believe other than that, I believe everybody got either their first or were indifferent about their choice. And so, the committees are extremely important for this county. Because that's the first introduction a lot of times to the constituents about what the business of the county is. And I've spent a lot of time over the last 4 years really harping on the rest of the commissioners that we need to bring less things up on the floor and more things up in committee, because that way we can vet that process. That's our time to talk, because the rules are different in the committee versus on the floor.
Right.
When we're on the floor, we're not quite held to it a lot of times, but there are rules about time limits and how many times you can talk on a subject. In committee, there's not. And so that's our ability to talk freely and open up and be able to talk to people in the crowd without having to do it through public comment. And so that's why the committees are so important, is because that is the opportunity for the most dialogue.
Yeah.
And, if we're not talking about things and we're trying to rush them through, then we're not doing the process the way it's set up.
Let me ask you this, Drew, and this is just your personal opinion. How important do you feel like getting the correct people matched in the right committees, as far as like maybe their strong suits should line up with what that committee handles? Do you think that pretty much gets done most of the time, or does that waver sometimes?
I think that's the attempt.
Uh-huh.
I think that, that was the one thing that, Commissioner Fair was trying to relay, was that his intent was, number one, to give them their choice, because again, that is kind of going into that is, important that you kind of get seated where you want to. But, when I came in 4 years ago, my number 1 was rules and my number 2 was finance. And I ended up on courthouse and property.
Yeah.
And that was actually because we did nominations on the floor, and people who got seated into certain locations or in certain committees that wasn't even their first or second choice, but because I guess it was perceived that they needed to be on that committee. Commissioner Fair brought up a point that, Eugene Ray made a statement when he was mayor that he didn't believe that 2 people from a same district should be on the same committee, because that way representation is spread out.
Yeah, it's weighted when it's like that.
And so that is another thing that I believe Commissioner Fair kind of looked at, was trying to make sure and spread that representation around. And so again, it's interesting because it's very, very important process. And I think it's one of those things that we as a county, while it's not as important as other things, it is very important that we get the right people and the right skill set tied to the right committees, because everybody has strengths and weaknesses, and so it's much easier to benefit their strengths and try to limit their weaknesses.
Yeah. All right. So the committee meetings themselves, there were, everything went pretty smooth, but there was an issue with law enforcement. What?
Yeah, and so in Public Safety Committee, we had in a public comment section, we had a constituent that raised some concerns out at the jail, that there were releasing individuals with their cell phones not charged up out onto the highway, and they were having to walk into town during bad weather or all hours of the night, things like that. And so I believe that there were some, the sheriff was there, the jail administrator wasn't there, but he did have a representative there. And so they were able to take that information in and kind of talk a little bit about it, that, try to come up with a solution. Mark Thomas, which has always done a phenomenal job as the chairman of that committee, basically told the gentleman that they were going to really work on getting together with the sheriff and coming up with a solution for that. But I think they did mention there are some things that they can do to ease that situation. But one thing we can't forget about, there is a law that individual cannot stay in the jail past their time and date.
Right.
And so because of that, if they don't arrange a ride, which they were saying that they give them ample opportunity weeks ahead of time to set up a ride for the day they get out. If they don't do that, the jail is mandated by law to release them.
Right.
But I do think the jail identified maybe some ways that they can help with making sure cell phones are charged, things like that, so they can call for a ride day of.
Right. Okay. Well, I think that's something that everybody can talk through and come up to a solution that, and it's good to see them having that dialogue when a constituent brings a concern up. And I have seen that.
I think the thing is what people need to understand is the committees really are designed for creating policy and really looking at ways of trying to alleviate it from a commission standpoint. When you have an issue with or a concern with a department, you need to reach out to that department, because I think it could have been a little easier, fixed if it was contacted directly to the jail with concerns. And so, just understanding the differences between what the commission's responsibilities for and the jail and the sheriff, because the jail and the sheriff are run by the sheriff.
Yeah.
And the commission really just handles more of a rules, regulations, policy standpoint from a county-wide. And so again, reach out to those department heads. We got great department heads in this county, and they're willing to make those adjustments.
All right. Moving on a little bit later, we had a school board meeting, and we reported this on Shelbyville Now. This is the second year in a row that we've had a decrease. They called it attendance records, but I'm going to / enrollment. I mean, I don't know exactly the terminology this needs to be, but we're down another 250 students. That gets us 5.6% decrease in 2-year period. You being on the commission, you just looking at that, what does that say to you? What are you thinking when you see a decrease like that?
Well, and again, remember, those are early enrollment numbers of the school year. When we get to the 30-day number, which is really where we have a really idea of exactly where they're at, it could be less or more. So, that 30-day number is really what we're focused on when we get that report from the school board. But what I look at is there's been a lot of conversation about a new high school. Well, when the numbers are decreasing, that capital output has to be considered in that. Where I think that maybe some concerns is where are those kids going? Where because we see an increase in the amount of children in our area, but if we see a decrease of them going into school, is it through a voucher program? They're going to a private school. Is it a homeschool situation, because we're seeing an uptick in homeschool? Is it, have anything to do with the immigration from, our federal government? Does it have to do with people leaving our community? And so again, those are all things that we kind of ask ourselves of where they're going, because, they're not just, vanishing, they're going somewhere. And so with that, we've got to kind of identify how that impacts us long-term from a capital standpoint, a facility standpoint, and then again, a funding standpoint for the school system.
Okay. So I'll look at the population increases that we've had in Bedford County. We've had a 10% increase in the last 6 years in our population. You would think that our school system numbers would go up and correspond to that. They have for a little while, and now these past 2 years they've gone down. I think we're seeing the biggest number is in the homeschoolers. You're starting to see people network. You're starting to see that become a little bit easier. And there's a reason that families look and they say, I want to homeschool my kids. So what is it? This is nationwide. This is not right here in Bedford County. So I'm thinking to myself, what is it? I think society in general has created an environment within our schools that I just know it's a different world than it was 25 years ago. And there's some parents looking at us and no, I'm just not going to do it. And you had an incident this week. It was in the news and made the national news. We had 2 Beaufort County junior high or middle schools threatened by a rival middle school. And there was a TikTok video that came out and there were threats made. We had to have law enforcement. Okay, that's a school event, even though it's outside of school hours. That just tells us where our society is right now, I think. And a lot of people are just saying, I just feel safer having my kids at homeschool. So I don't know what the answer is, but this is not a Beaufort County problem.
Well, I think
This is a society problem.
when I was a kid, I think technology, I think resources were not easily or readily available for homeschool. I think there were some, pockets of it, but now the technology is much easier. The resources, the networking, I think that all that kind of together makes it a lot easier to homeschool. And I think you're right that I think a lot of parents are looking at each other saying, can I do it better? Can I do it more efficient? Because again, one of the concerns I have, and this is not our local school system's fault, I have concerns that we spend a month at the end of the year doing nothing but
Right.
Federal and state
know.
testing.
Yeah.
Well, they get nothing out of that
Yeah.
to me, because they're not continuing to learn. They're just being continuously evaluated in these day-long tests. And I think that, a lot of people from, that sit back and look at that and go, I can utilize that time better.
Yeah.
Be able to do that. I think that, the access to sports where they can still participate in sports is attractive because, you can homeschool them, you can control the schedule, control how that goes, and then turn around and allow them to still be able to do the extracurricular things that are there. I think you have places like Cooper Christian that's now popped up in town that, that has done a great job over the last 5 or 6 years and now built a beautiful facility and is really putting an investment into our community. And so I think people are looking at that and going, hey, that's attractive, especially with the voucher program now, because you might be able to afford it now.
Right.
So I think there's lots of different factors. And so I think that there's conversations, had in most families that, they decide, is the public school system still the pathway that I want to go? Some families choose to do it different ways. And, all of my children in public school out at Cascade, we love the Cascade school system. We moved, back here from college to make sure. And after we had kind of got into our marriage, we made sure to move back here to our home to where our kids could go to Cascade.
Yeah.
And so I think that, each family has to look at that. But I think that the school system in general also has to look at how that impact is, because if numbers continue to decrease, how is that going to affect our overall funding model? How is that going to affect the facilities and what we need to do there? So,
Well, the one thing that comes to my mind, 500 kids in 2 years, that's a school right there. That's 500 kids that are not sitting in desk, that we're not teaching.
Yeah.
Okay, I look at that. Let's look at a positive side. It's taken a little pressure off our system
agree.
from the mass numbers that we had. We got up over 9,000 at one time of people, and that we were proportionately crowded compared to other counties our same size. Okay, so that takes a little pressure off. But then there's also been a talk of we need a high school out south of town, out in the Liberty area. Okay, does that conversation change now that we've got 500 kids? Is it concentrated in one area? I just think it's across the board, isn't it?
It seems like it. And, and this is going to affect a lot of things. It's going to affect that conversation about, do we need that Liberty High School? If, we're losing 500 students in 2 years, an average of 250 a year, what is that going to look like 5 years down the road? We just had the lawsuit, and that reduction in funding that has been directly used for facilities. So I think the conversation as the new commission goes in is that necessary now as much as it was 3 years ago? How's it affecting our sports programs? I think that, if you see a reduction system wide, you may start to see those sports programs drop down a division again. So that helps us be more competitive. And so, yes, there's some negatives to it. There's also some positives. And then there's a lot of questions that come with it as to where we're headed. So.
Yeah. I think the school board is going to have a challenge trying to figure out what's happened. And then how do you walk forward not knowing? You might have a spike next year.
Yeah.
And that's the two the 2 years that we see starting a trend might turn around and go the opposite direction. So you got to be nimble on this.
Well,
thing.
you might see kids that that the parents chose to go homeschool and then it didn't work out.
Yeah.
And then they got to turn around and come back into the system. So the school board has a hard job of being able to basically balance this year to year. But again, we'll see kind of where it goes. That's that we have some great people on our school board that are looking at this. Tim Harwell as the superintendent are consistently looking at it to be able to see kind of how that affects us.
All righty. Let's see. I've got some questions here. Tim Loki goes back to the jail situation. He says, seriously charge their cell phone. They talk on the jail phone the whole time they are serving. So you're going to have to charge these phones up so they'll have phones. All right. That's an easy solution.
Yeah,
Tim
and I
knows.
think they
Okay.
talked about
Yeah.
that. So
All right. Different subject. Where was the sports show this morning? I was waiting all year to watch. Tim, I'm sorry, but we're not doing the sports show this year. We just don't have the bandwidth to do it. And we're trying to reorganize a little bit and do some things different.
now we
here.
are going to talk about them.
We're going to talk about
them.
sports, so here at the end. And then Tana Polly Warren, yes, we do need a Liberty High School. Okay, that's been the sentiment out there for 10 years or so. You just got to watch these numbers close and see how it plays out over the next year. If these numbers come back up, then who knows? I mean, we just got to look at it close. And I'm glad I don't have to do it.
Absolutely.
All right, let's talk about one other thing. Out on North Main this week, Drew, I had our scanner on. We got the scanner going back up. The tacking is working in the city now on our scanner, and we've had a lot of people question about that. We finally got it programmed. There was some settings that scanner I've got is pretty high tech, and man, I'm pretty dumb when it comes to all that stuff. I thought I knew how to do it, but I finally got this thing going, and in the process of that, I started listening, and this week we probably had 5 or 6 wrecks on North Main on 231 North.
Yeah.
One involved multi vehicles just past Walmart. A dump truck was involved. 2 people were transported. All week long, we kept hearing these calls on North Main. Okay, that's obviously our traffic street. That's where everything is just crammed into. I don't know how you change that. I don't know if you have to start changing the way the settings are on the traffic lights, but people just got to pay attention, man. I was driving out this week, and I was doing 32 or 33 miles an hour in the right-hand lane. Okay, just a tad above the speed limit. And there's a guy in a pickup truck that ran up behind me like he was going to bump me, and he was laying on the horn, and I'm like, man, I'm going the speed limit here. And he whipped by me and about hit 3 or 4 other cars. That kind of stuff creates havoc.
Mm-hmm.
So you've kind of been in this, and you've seen the results of car wrecks over the years.
Well, and spending as many years in public safety, the thing is there's always that 1 or 2 drivers that causes and messes it up for everybody else. But, as our town gets bigger, as our population increases, this is, I always said it, I want to keep Bedford County rural. And the reason why that is for that exact thing, because with population increases, with new stores, with new growth comes concerns and problems, especially with our infrastructure. And so we don't have the thoroughfares, the lights, the turning lanes. North Main does, for a majority of it, have appropriate turn lanes. But system-wide, we are not set up for 60, 70, 80,000 people. And so that's the thing is as we continue to grow, we have got to get ahead of our infrastructure to be able to start fixing some of those things. And so I think that, weighs into it a lot. I think the reason it's all concentrated on North Main, because I do think that's the conduit that everybody utilizes to go everywhere. The bypass comes off of that, Madison Street comes off of that. I just believe that's where we're concentrated, not to mention what have we built recently, a Chick-fil-A, a Starbucks,
Coffee Row, coffee and chicken row. Yeah.
And so, at the end of the day, when you start to increase the amount of resources that are available, that's going to bring more people into it. And so I think it's just a lot of different factors. But I do think that, that's something our planning departments need to pay attention to, especially in the city. of utilizing some of that Madison Street stretch because it's starting to die off at the far end of it.
Yeah, poor Madison
You know,
Street's
and
about
we-
to dry up, man.
And we just need to stretch it out and utilize the different areas. And I know everybody wants to be on North Main, but that's the reason that we have planners
Man,
is to make
who
sure
wants to be
push
on
that.
I don't want to be on North Main. I try to avoid. You know what I
Agreed.
do? Fairfield Pike is my road, man.
That used to be the dangerous
I
road.
know.
Now it's North
Well,
Main,
I don't
so.
know. Fairfield Pike is still pretty dangerous because it runs parallel, and there's a lot of people coming down through there trying
Agreed.
to avoid that traffic. And there are kids playing out through there too. You got to watch, and the dadgum ducks, man. You got to watch the
Yeah,
ducks.
Midland Road starting
Yeah.
to be that way. I think you're starting to see that all over. And so, lots of conversation when it comes to that. But I think the city has a big job ahead of them as we continue to grow. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, Drew, let's take a break and hear from another set of sponsors. Let's hear from Kincaid Service Company, First Bank, and Piggly Wiggly. And we're going to come back and Tim Loki, we are going to talk about some sports. We're going to go over some high school games that took place last night. Let's hear from our sponsors. We'll be right back.
Shop local at Shelbyville Piggly Wiggly, down home, down the street. From farm fresh produce and hand-cut meats to pantry staples, dairy, frozen favorites, and household essentials, we've got your list covered at hometown prices. Don't miss our weekly ad and truckload meat sales. Open 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. daily. Visit 874 Union Street, Shelbyville, or call 931-684-1363. Follow us on Facebook for the latest specials. Shop local. Save big at the Pig.
At Kincaid Service Company, we've proudly served Middle Tennessee since 1934. Families across the region trust us for quality furniture, appliances, electronics, and the kind of service only a hometown business can provide. From living room sets and dining collections to washers, dryers, refrigerators, and the latest in home entertainment, Kincaid has everything you need to make your house a home. And when it comes to a great night's sleep, our showroom features leading brands of mattresses, offering comfort and quality you can count on. We don't just sell products, we stand behind them. When you buy your appliances or electronics from Kincaid, our expert service team is here to keep them running for years to come. It's the kind of care that sets us apart. For value, selection, and service you can trust, visit Kincaid Service Company today, locally owned and community strong.
On game day, winning is everything. But life's big wins happen off the field. When you win a heart. When you win their trust. When you win their respect. First Bank's community banking is perfect for life's big wins because of what we're big on. You. Make us part of your team for life's biggest wins.
All righty. Welcome back into the weekend wrap up. Drew, you were standing on the sideline last night. Where were you last night?
Well, of course, I'm coaching out at Cascade this year, and so I was standing in Cheatham County.
Cheatham County.
Yeah, we were all the way up in Cheatham County, about an hour and 45 minutes away, and
Tell us about the game.
We had a good night.
42-21, right?
42-21. The 21 was scored on our second team and third team. As soon as we came out of half, we did one drive with the starters on offense and defense, and then we put our JV in. JV kind of gave up a little bit of points there. One, a long kickoff return. Defense a little bit. Offense didn't really move the ball well. They came down and they scored a couple touchdowns, and we put our starters back in. We scored another touchdown in about 5 plays, and that kind of killed their momentum. And then we put JV back out to finish out the game. So
good way to start the year.
Oh, absolutely. And, just kind of the stars of the game, D'Lo, which is one of our receivers, he was phenomenal. He caught almost 100 yards. I think he had 93 yards on 3 catches. He started off on our first drive with about a 60-yard pass down the sideline from Sam Bradley, our quarterback. He is special. He got dinged up a little bit in one of our scrimmages.
What did you say his name was?
Sam Bradley.
There was another quarterback named Sam Bradley. Remember him? He played for Kansas, I believe, and then went and played for Tampa Bay. So another Sam Bradley.
Well,
all right. So
I'm going
he's
to tell
doing
you,
well, huh?
He's special. He's starting to get looked at by some colleges. I mean, he's your prototypical 6'2", 190 pound, just
Wow.
really good. I mean, he's the guy. Nate Zimmerman had, I think, 110 yards rushing, and he ran hard last night. Lyndon, our receiver, had a really good night. He took a screen for about 60 yards. Our defense did really, really well. I mean, other than a couple penalties, they didn't get much past the 50, their starters.
Yeah.
And then, and I think, Coach Karkoff said it after the game, Coach A-Rob, which is our offense coordinator, both of those had said our offensive line was what really
Made the difference.
really
yeah.
made the difference. And I'll tell you, they were athletic last night. We start a freshman, we start a sophomore, a junior and two seniors. And I will tell you, they played phenomenal. And, we moved around. Rhymes plays center for us. And, he's a leader up there. We put it together. And I will tell you, we've had a really good off season. I think if we continue to do what we're doing and we continue to push through, we're going to be a contender in this region. And I think that, you don't want to get ahead of yourself. This week's Moore County, and that's what we're focused on. And that's what we're going to really focus on, and really quit worrying about anything other than that. But I will tell you, these guys are ready. They played hard. They play emotional. Cheatham County played a little dirty. They were getting a little extra in after the whistle, and our kids stayed good and composed, and and that tells you a lot of maturity when they are not able to respond.
Yeah.
And so I think everything's ready to go, and we'll meet tomorrow as a coaching staff and get ready for Moore County. And I think that this season's Coach Karkoff. I've worked for a lot of coaches over the years, and I really enjoy working for him. He is. He's cool, calm, and collected on the sidelines. He brings youthful energy, I think we got something special this year. So we'll see how the rest of the season goes.
Great start of the year. All right, community, they fall to Moore County, 27-7. I don't know the details of that game, but they scored 7 points and they held a team to 27, and that's a good way to start the year. Not. It was a close game for a good part of the game.
And I heard they look much different than last year and much more improved. And so, this is year 2 for Glenn Tidwell out there. And, they've got some kids that have some talent. And I think they've, in Glenn's system, he's finally starting to get it kind of his way. Year 1, you can only do so much. And then year 2 is really when you start to see that improvement. Glenn's a great coach, and I've coached with him 2 places, both at Shelbyville and at Cascade. And, I think that, he does a great job. And I think that, the community is starting to support them. I think that, they're starting to see, kind of that next vision of kind of where he's headed. And so you can see just off that score, that's a much better improved stat than last year.
Right.
And I think that, it's going to take a process and it's going to take a little bit, but, kind of getting those kids involved, and, kind of building that program up, I think Glenn's the perfect guy to do that. And I think he's going to do a good job out there. So,
yeah. Okay, Central, Tullahoma, the Battle of 41A. Good crowd last night. Not as big as some I've seen, but a good crowd. Central was down 7-0 going into the fourth quarter. I thought we had a drive going, and we got stopped. We ended up getting the ball back with about 2.5 minutes left, drove down, scored with 1 minute and 49 seconds to tie the game, made it 7-7. Zion Rucker hit Jackson Thiem on about a 32-yard pass. Jackson's our tight end, our middle linebacker, our kicker. He does everything, man. He's like I think I saw him. I think I saw him over polishing helmets before the game. I mean, he just does it all. But we go into double overtime. We end up winning 13-10 after 2 overtimes. Big turnover in that game. Our defense played well most of the night, and so they got off to a win. And when you can beat your biggest rival to start the season, it's got to be a good tone to set. And I'm looking forward to what's going on. Now, it's just a tough 6A schedule that show.
Yeah, it's just the thing is we're at the very lowest end
Yeah.
of 6A. So, we're playing schools that have 4, 5, 6, 800 more kids than us. And, Judd's going to have them ready every week. And JC, I mean, he always does a great job calling the games. Jackson Thiem, I mean, he's going to be their center point this year of being able to do that. This is the first year in a long time that I think Central doesn't have as many athletes as they normally do. They have them in certain spots. But we used to struggle to get 5 great offensive linemen.
You got 7
now
or 8.
you got 7 or 8, and the offensive line is the base. And you don't have as many skill guys as you did. And so you got a great quarterback. You've got, Jackson Thiem that's playing pretty much anywhere. And, the defense is, playing well. It's always a great game with Tullahoma. We always love to win that one as our main rival. I played 25 years ago, and, I remember every one of those Tullahoma games that we played. So,
big win. Well, horse show cranks up this week, Drew.
mm-hmm.
The donuts will be ready Thursday morning, in case you were wondering.
Oh, it's on my calendar.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for watching this morning. We'll be back again next week with the news that matters. Thanks for your comments. We'll see you guys next week.